a little bit closer.
Perhaps the biggest claim that proponents of Christian presuppositional apologetics make is that atheists and other non-Christians can't account for truth or knowledge, and so are incapable of knowing anything. The reason these apologists say this is that, in their opinion, the skeptic must reason that their reasoning is valid, which they say is a viciously circular process. I agree with the apologist in this case. Reasoning that your reason is valid is indeed viciously circular, but I don't think, unlike the apologist, that Jesus Christ and the Bible is the way out of the problem. Instead, I think pragmatist epistemology, the same way of knowing used by science, allows people to gain reliable knowledge of the world through empirical observation and experimentation. Basically, the pragmatist defines the word truth as that which works, and the word knowledge as that which is gained through finding out what works by empirical observation and testing. For example, on pragmatism, we can measure the truth of the proposition 2 plus 2 equals 4 by recognizing that this equation is useful for successfully completing mathematical operations. And we can know the proposition 2 plus 2 equals 5 is false because it leads us to perform invalid mathematical operations. On pragmatism, statements that can't be empirically verified or falsified, such as love is better than hate or prairie churches are pretty, are considered neither true nor false. Instead, they are considered to be meaningless, subjective expressions of emotion. All moral claims fall into this category, meaning that morality is a subjective exercise of emotion rather than any kind of rational or empirical system. Pragmatist epistemology can also account for the laws of logic that presuppositionalists love to harp on. On pragmatism, the laws of logic aren't laws in the same way that, say, a highway speed limit is a law. The laws of logic aren't some rules set by some outside authority like a god or a government. They are simply descriptions of the ways that things function in reality, and they also allow us to make useful predictions about things relevant to our lives. For instance, our evolutionary ancestors empirically discovered that hungry lions couldn't be both dangerous and not dangerous at the same time, and this knowledge allowed them to avoid getting eaten and successfully pass on their genes to the next generation, which further drove the evolutionary process. Later on, their descendants would codify this principle as the law of non-contradiction, which is simply a human, pragmatic, linguistic term used to describe an aspect of reality relevant to our lives. This brings me to my next point. We can be reasonably certain that pragmatism is valid because it allows us to function well within reality. Computers, airplanes, life-saving vaccines, cancer treatments, and cell phones were all invented by people who used scientific pragmatist methods to find out truth, i.e., that which works. Knowledge is a process by which people carry out a method repeatedly demonstrated to work in the past. For example, the biologist can be said to know that the theory of evolution is true by engaging in the process of verifying the predictions the theory makes through multiple lines of inquiry, including analyzing fossils, testing genes, and producing successful vaccines. Any product or procedure that cannot be demonstrated to work through repeated empirical testing cannot be classified as knowledge. In addition to its practical power, pragmatism rests on no hidden assumptions or circular axioms. On pragmatism, we know that our reasoning is valid because it produces desired results in the real world, and we would know that our reasoning was not valid if it did not lead to desired results in the real world. We know a proposition is true if it is practically useful, and we know a proposition is false if it is either practically useless or practically counterproductive. In addition, pragmatism doesn't fall prey to the absurd roadrunner tactic, that is, using a principle's own definition to refute it, because pragmatism itself is practically useful. It works. Science is based on pragmatism, and we use the results of science every single day. Yes, even creationists use the results of science. No other epistemology, including correspondence theory, coherentism, foundationalism, or the absurdity of Christian presuppositionalism, allows us to eliminate circular reasoning, and no other theory of knowledge gives us the utility and everyday usefulness of scientific pragmatism. For these reasons, those of us wishing to successfully account for truth and knowledge should jettison those other theories and adopt pragmatist epistemology. Pragmatism. It just fucking works.